Get ready, it is time for the Q1 update at my reading LLC that is very much so underperforming. Hello, hi, my name is Emma Grace, and today I am essentially going to be doing a reading wrap-up of all of the books that I have read in the past 4 months. I'm going to start with my 5-star reads and then work my way down to my 1-star reads and my DNFs. I didn't have any 1-star reads, actually. I had 1 DNF. But I'm going to start with the books I really loved. We're going to start on a positive note, and then we're going to end with a sour aftertaste. Doesn't that just sound delightful? Doesn't that sound great? Doesn't that sound like the content you want to watch? You can see why my LLC is underperforming, right? Like, I'm not good at marketing at all. I boldly proclaimed at the start of the year in an Instagram post I made that I was going to read 80 books. And given my current numbers, I am, I believe, like 15 books behind on that goal according to Goodreads. I have a very good reason, okay? And that reason is my education. I just finished my master's degree, so I did read a lot. And I'm gonna come out with a separate video talking about all of the books that I read for school, because in my mind it's like church and state, like those are 2 separate things. So this year thus far I have read 9 books, some of which I have really enjoyed. I will say, even though it's been a slow start to the reading year, it definitely has been a strong start, and as someone who is training for a half marathon currently, I know that in a matter of pacing, you don't want to sprint right out the gate when it comes to finishing the race. You want to start at a slow, easy pace, and then you want to have what's called a negative split. Look at me, athlete, and you want to finish the race faster than you started. So if we apply that to my reading, I'm doing great. I'm gonna up the pace. We're gonna have negative splits in this reading year, okay? Walk with me here. Run with me, if you will. Should I just start talking about the books that I read? Yes. So anyways, without further ado, let me just stop jibber jabbering and get into the reviews of the books that I read this year so far, because that is what you are here for. So first up, in the 5 out of 5 category, we have one of my new all-time favorite books. It was so good, and it was Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. This book takes place in Glasgow, and we follow a young boy. He's 15 years old. His name's Mungo. He's very sensitive. He's growing up in a neglectful situation. His mother is rarely home. His sister is taking on a lot of the responsibility, and his older brother is in a gang. And during this time, he falls in love with a Catholic boy named James. We follow a bit of a dual timeline. We follow James and Mungo meeting and falling in love, and then in the present day we follow Mungo, who is sent by his mother on a fishing trip with 2 strange men. It's one of the saddest books I've read, but what makes it really powerful is that there is this sense that it's absolutely devastating while it still holds these moments of love that are just so beautiful. And it's a really poignant exploration of what it means to find beauty in such a hard, unrelenting, unforgiving world, and how there are these little pockets of just soft, beautiful moments, and how important it is to hold on to those. It is such an immersive story. Each character feels so real and so tangible, and the whole representation and setting of Glasgow in this novel was so prominent and vivid. I cried reading this book for the first time in a long time. I've not cried in so long. I don't know if that's bad, but I cried reading this book, and it was in public. It was on the TTC. It was on the subway. I was reading this book crying. It was a little bit difficult to get into, but once I was into it, I was just so invested and so wrapped up in this story, and I would definitely really recommend it. The next 5 out of 5 star read that I have here is Famesick by Lena Dunham. This was my most recent read. So Famesick is Lena Dunham's memoir, and to preface this, I will say I don't know much about Lena Dunham. Well, I mean, now I do. I just read a whole entire book about her, but I did not know much going into this book about Lena Dunham, besides the fact that she had the show Girls, and I knew that You Are in Love by Taylor Swift was written about Lena Dunham's relationship with Jack Antonoff. I knew about like the PowerPoint. I didn't watch Girls. It aired when I would have been like 10 to 13, so it wasn't really aimed at my demographic, and it isn't really a show that's aimed at my generation. Although it is interesting because in recent years, like ever since I turned 20, quotes from that show live in my head rent-free. Like, I am a voice of a generation, or let's all make fun of the girl who took a risk and put herself out there creatively. Oh, all adventurous women do. Iconic. I feel like it really shows that your pen has game when people who don't even know the show that they're referencing are quoting your show in an attempt to express how they feel about their own lives. So I didn't really know much about Lena Dunham, but she's always been present, I will say, like tangentially in my life. I went to the Eras tour in Philadelphia, and it was Philadelphia night 2. And I remember when it was the time for surprise songs, Taylor Swift was like, it's one of my best friend's birthdays, Lena Dunham, and she's requested this song, and then she played Forever and Always. So Lena Dunham is the reason I got to hear Forever and Always live, so I owe her that. I was, however, always conflicted on how to feel about Lena Dunham, because even though that's another great quote, I give zero fucks about anything, and yet I am highly opinionated about everything, even things I am not properly informed on. That was how I felt about Lena Dunham. I actually ended up picking up this book just because, first of all, everyone and their mother was reading it, and hello, I am a sheep, so I went to read it too. And also because I felt like it would be really interesting to read a book about someone that I had these conflicting emotions about, but that I didn't really know much about. Furthermore, on top of that, seeing her talk about this book, seeing her do press for this book, listening to some more interviews and hearing the way she speaks, I just found her really interesting to listen to, and I thought she was really articulate, and the way she articulated herself about her book and her life was really fascinating to me, and I decided that I wanted to get into it. So I read this. As I've been saying kind of throughout this whole tangent, Lena Dunham is a talented writer. You cannot deny her that. The way she articulates certain thoughts and emotions is so poignant and so compelling, and I enjoyed every second of this book. There was not a single moment where I was bored. I could not put it down because the way she tells stories, like the second you read a couple of words, you're just drawn in, you're pulled under into her writing. Even though I had never seen Girls before, I really enjoyed getting a behind the scenes glimpse of what it was like putting that show together. I also did enjoy learning more about her relationship with Jack Antonoff because I'm nosy, and Because You Are in Love was one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs of all time. I was like, this is what love is like. And then of course when they were broke up, I was gagged. I was like, my favorite song is about a relationship that ended. Great. She does address the PowerPoint, so you know, she's not leaving any stone unturned in this memoir. It's about the pursuit of doing something that you love in a context that is making you sick. It's a lot about her health and her reproductive health and just women's reproductive health in general. She has a lot to say about. There's so much that she wraps up into this book. It's like 370 pages, but she covers so much ground, and she does it in such a compelling, articulate way. If you are interested in this, highly, highly, highly recommend that you pick it up. If you've seen everybody talk about it, it's for a reason. It's great. It's fantastic. It's life-changing. I really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed learning more about her. So yeah, this book doesn't quite belong in the 4 out of 5 star category, but here's the thing. My heart and soul wants to give it 5 stars. My brain knows it is not a 5-star book, but it is in my heart, okay? It has a 5-star feeling. There's something preventing me from giving it 5 stars. I don't know what, because I'm in charge of this, but there is still it's something there. I don't know what it is. But this book I really liked. It is called 200 Monas by Jan Seons. We essentially follow a girl named Arvi. She's dealing with the loss of her mother, and as she's cleaning out her mother's things, she finds a bag of 200 hits of Molly, what she assumes to be Molly, but it is not Molly. It is actually something called Mona, which is this rare pharmaceutical drug that basically produces the effect of giving the user intense, extreme orgasms. 2 drug dealers show up on her doorstep. They're like, you have 48 hours to sell all of this, give us the money, or else we'll kill you. So Arvi has 200 hits of this drug that produces intense orgasms, and she has to team up with the really hot drug dealer on campus, and they have 48 hours to sell all these drugs. This one is so much fun. This is one of the most fun books I've ever read. I don't usually gravitate towards reading like fun, campy reads, but this one I really, really enjoyed. It made me want to get more into it. Was this the best book I ever read? No, but it had that spark, it had that X factor, it had that something special, it had that unnameable, intangible quality to a book. You know, when you pick up a book and there's nothing about the writing, there's nothing about the characters yet that you've grown attached to, but you just feel it. You're just like, I'm gonna have a good time reading this book. That was how I felt reading this book. Something about it clicked with me and it really connected. This was also the like hot drug dealer wolf first crush I've had on a guy in a book in a while. It has been a hot minute. I thought I had lost all ability to like men in books because I'd been turning too much of my attention to men in real life, and then like fiction started paling in comparison. Sadly, I don't know how the men managed that one. That was surprising. Like, I never thought I'd say that, but it did happen. Made the mistake of focusing on real men, but we're so back. This guy, he was great. Loved him. It's a campy read. It's all about sex. It's horny. It's fun. It's a bit of a romp. But this book does also make some very cogent points about women's pleasure and some men's general inadequacies in that area. It is also a grief-driven story. It has like a lot of emotional heart. It just feels like a very well balanced out tale. Like I said, my heart wants to give it 5 stars. Logically, I know it's not. Like, it was still excellent and fun. It just got a little bit like too corny at certain points. But it will probably still end up being one of my favorite books of the year. So I really liked it. Okay, now we're moving into the categorically 4 to 5 star section of this video. The first one I have in this section is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. This is a classic. The Virgin Suicides essentially follows the story of the Lisbon girls. There's 5 daughters all in this household, and within 1 year they all die by suicide, and it's the story of the last year of their lives told through the eyes of the neighborhood boys. If that gives you the ick, just you wait if you read this book. Lots of icks to be found. This book gives you the experience of like putting on goggles that allow you to see through the male gaze. It's terrifying. Like, thank God it's so short because I don't think I'd be able to handle any more of it. The writing is so vivid. It has this really startling imagery. It's to the point where sometimes it did take me out of it because it was just like image after image after image. Like, I could see him employing and mobilizing the imagery rather than having the book kind of wash over me and being like, oh, this is the experience of like reading it and this is what I'm supposed to interpret. It really is a story about the fetishization of women's pain and how women are objectified by that fetishization. There's this like chorus style narration from the neighborhood boys where it's not singular, although it feels kind of singular because it's so limited. It gives you a big feeling of the ick, to be honest. But I think it is a story whose lessons lie in the narrative's failures. It says more by what it doesn't say and by what it fails to say, and that's really interesting to me. I personally didn't perceive this as like a story that is perpetuating the male gaze and being like, this is how we should see things. I saw it more as a satire or exploration of the male gaze. I do want to watch the movie. This story also reinvigorated my love for unreleased Lana Del Rey songs because that's kind of the vibe of The Virgin Suicides. If you like unreleased Lana Del Rey songs, I think you'll like this one. Moving on to another bubble category. I'm not really a fan of doing things categorically. I'm realizing I like there to be a little gray area because like life isn't black and white, neither should my reading reviews and rating system be. Thank you. Coming in at like 3.5 out of 5 stars, I have Lie With Me by Philip Besson. This one is the story of a man recounting his first love. It's a really short book. It's beautifully written. It's very sparse, but very lyrical. It's a brief, quick read that really punches you right in the gut. It's very short, like I mentioned, but it still feels very meditative and sprawling. It still has this quality, I think, which really speaks to its ability to represent that feeling of having such a brief, short love, but having it be your first love and having it be so important to you, where it's so quick and yet it feels all-encompassing. It feels like it's enough to fill up an epic when it's just this brief moment in time. And I think the very book itself does this by being, it's so short and yet it feels so sprawling and so dense, and there's just so much going on, which I really have to commend because I'm very long-winded. I can't say shit in a short amount of time. I need to ramble until I can eventually maybe stumble on my point. So I really do have a respect for people who have a knack for concision because I do not have that knack. I lack it altogether, as you can probably tell. But it is such a testament to Philippe Bazan's writing quality that you spend such a short amount of time with these characters and yet you finish the novel feeling like you care about them so much, like you know them so much. It's the only reason I gave it, again, like a bit of a middling score of like 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like, it was really good. I really liked it. I'm not a fan of short books. Like, I like something that I can really sink into and spend a lot of time with. I think it's so interesting to see how authors can accomplish so much in such limited page space. Don't get me wrong. But it's just not my style. I like the long-winded stories. So now we are firmly in the category of 3 out of 5 stars, and this next book that I'm going to talk about is Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. She wrote her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, published it in like 2022, and then this is now her first ever work of fiction. So I was really excited to read this because I watched her interview on Last Meals, and I was really interested in the way she talked about her writing and the way she talked about just in a lot of the stuff she talked about. So again, kind of like Lena Dunham's memoir, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick this one up. The press tour got me. It worked. Good job to whoever scheduled that. I owe a lot to this book because it got me out of my month-long reading slump, so thank you. It's very short, as you can see, but I will say, even though it's like a little bit longer than Lie With Me, it's not short in the same way. In like Lie With Me felt so sprawling and meditative. This one is very snappy. It's very direct. It just tears through you like a bullet. Something very niche and very specific that this book does that I really liked is the realistic representation of materialism and overconsumption. I haven't seen a lot of novels talk about this in a really realistic way. I've seen a lot of like body horror about the skincare industry and the way we're constantly sold new products with like new ingredients that are just going to change the way we look. It is, unfortunately, it's such a huge part of being a girl is that we're constantly advertised to like these new products and new clothing items and new makeup that's going to make us more beautiful, and it becomes almost this thing where when you're more anxious or insecure about something, you feel the need to online shop and to go and buy stuff that'll make you feel more beautiful so that you can like control something, and even if it's just your physical appearance. Even if things aren't going right, I can at least look good, quote unquote, and have some more power that way through enhancing my looks. Because sometimes in our fucked up misogynistic world, it feels like that's the only access to power I will have. Like for me personally, it's become a barometer of insecurity. Like whenever I open up Sephora, I sometimes have to take a step back and be like, what am I insecure about right now? Is it my looks? Yes. But is there like an underlying cause that's also making me feel insecure about my looks so that I feel the need to exercise some form of control in my life? Probably also yes. That was a long ass tangent, but I felt like this book represented that phenomena really well. Beyond that, this was very addictive, very fast paced. The reason it sits in a 3 out of 5 star for me, I initially gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but I did lower it after thinking a bit more about it. The reason it sits kind of in that middle range for me is that I feel like it doesn't say anything new. There's nothing really groundbreaking about this book. Why employ an age gap relationship? I think sometimes it can feel a little bit, I don't want to use the word gratuitous. It's a quick read. Got me out of my reading slump, so bless, but it wasn't my favorite book I've ever read. The next book I have that sits in the 3 out of 5 star category is Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. This is a Turkish classic love story. We follow a young man who goes to Berlin. He goes and sees a painting and he falls in love with the subject of the portrait, and then he meets her and it's about their love story together. This book, I felt like there were some passages that just characterized exactly what it's like to fall in love for the first time, which was really special. It is a really beautiful story about longing and yearning and love. It was like New Year's that I was reading this, so I was like a little off kilter. So I feel like I don't remember a ton about it, but I do remember that it explores art, loneliness, love, loss, life, all of those fun things. But like I said, I don't remember a ton about it, which I also feel like speaks to my person. Like, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes books find you at the wrong moment. I know people really love this. I'm sure there's so much to love with this. And I would recommend it if you're interested in like a short, quick study of love. But for me, this one just like, it didn't really hit. There's 2 books in the 2 out of 5 star category. It's like coffee. There's gonna be like one light roast, a blonde roast, and then there's gonna be like a French roast. So buckle in. First up, light roast, we have Flesh by David Soleil. This one won the Booker in 2025. This book is supposed to be an exploration of masculinity and specifically toxic masculinity. I personally did find, like, I read this one right before I read Young Mungo, and I found Young Mungo to be such more of a compelling exploration of those topics rather than this one. Basically, we follow a young man named Istvan as he grows up. It's like a coming of age life story. I can't really say too much about it because I feel like you kind of have to go in just not knowing anything besides the fact that it's about a boy who grows up and becomes a man, and it's about his life. My main critique is that the main character is very inaccessible to the reader, which is by design. I will admit, I know that. And I think it's interesting. There is this really fascinating contrast between the character, like the inner monologue of the character, and his actions and how he behaves. His like narration, his tone of voice, his inner monologue is so flat. Like there's really this flat affect, and even as we see him start to unravel and start to engage in very reckless behavior, he doesn't emote internally. And so you get the sense that his worldview and his inner narration is so disengaged and detached from the actual events. And it's a really interesting way to represent the feelings of loneliness and alienation that arise from the stoicism and emotional immovability that the patriarchy asks out of men. But on the flip side, I feel like this alienates readers in the process, because it's like, how do you represent detachment in a novel when the goal of a novel is to get readers to attach themselves to your characters and to your message? Istvan is so flat that sometimes it does feel like I'm reading more of just a literary experiment. The best way I could articulate this is that it feels like I'm reading an attempt at representing a phenomena rather than an actual representation of the phenomena. So that's my main critique. What does little old me know? Because this book went on to win the Booker. So Sarah Jessica Parker, Carrie Bradshaw. I didn't hate it by any means, and I can see why it won. I just have read other books that have been like Booker nominees, like The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. That one stuck with me a lot more than this one, and I don't even think The Bee Sting won the Booker in the year that it was nominated. Okay, and now we have the last book that I finished. I have If We Were Villains by ML Rio. What do you mean if? This book should be called We Were Villains, because these characters tortured me. In this book, we essentially follow a group of, I believe, like 7 theater students who are at this very elite, exclusive academy, and they only study Shakespeare, which from the get-go, it just feels a little implausible. I'm gonna say it, it's not my favorite premise of a book. One of the really obnoxious, arrogant guys in their group gets murdered, and it's the story of how he died and who did it, and you don't know who to trust. The thing with these characters is that they are constantly quoting Shakespeare. And I'm not talking like a "to thine own self be true" dropped every few pages. I'm talking swaths of pages. I'm talking full soliloquies. I love a good Shakespeare play. I don't like reading other people repeat Shakespeare back to me. My main problem with this is not that I was like, oh, I have to read Shakespeare, because like I love Shakespeare. Because the characters are constantly quoting Shakespeare, they are not using their own voice. And dialogue is so important in a novel. It's like, not only does it propel the story forward, it is an action in and of itself. It can also be a tool that when used to its full potential can make really subtle and deft revelations about the character who is speaking. How a character chooses to phrase a sentence, or how, like, what they choose to say in an argument is so important for us gaining an understanding of that character. And it's so important to us as readers for getting a sense of them and who they are. So if they're just quoting Shakespeare, all I know about them is that they are very deft and can come up really quickly with a Shakespeare quote, which I could tell you just from reading the back cover that these kids like Shakespeare. I just felt like I didn't really know any of the characters. Because there's like 7 main characters, they all fell into the trap of just having like that one thing, like that one identifiable thing that you can like mark and notice about them so that you know who they are, but you don't know much beyond that. The narrator's main trait is that he's the nice one. He's the boring one. Sorry, Oliver, that's work on getting a personality. And like, look, maybe I'm throwing stones from glass houses because I've literally only talked about running the half marathon for the past 4 months. Like, I don't exactly have personality in spades. So maybe Oliver reckoned with an insecurity I have deep inside myself, which is that I'm boring and have no personality. But there was one point, I will say, where the characters quoting Shakespeare worked really well. It was this one point at the climactic scene of the novel where one character was quoting Shakespeare and it worked. It was like, oh, this is so powerful, this is so good. And it was the one point that I felt really invested in the novel. So I feel like if we hadn't had all of those quotes beforehand, and if we had just had that one scene, we just had this one scene where this character's giving this almost manic repetition of Shakespeare, it would be so much more powerful. And I was like, oh, I wish we could have just held the punches and just saved it all for this one scene. There's also this one sequence in this book where the characters are just performing a play, and I feel like it didn't move forward the plot that much, and reading about people putting on a play to me was just not, it wasn't my vibe. Like, I was a theater kid, don't get me wrong. When I was in grade 4, I starred as Willy Wonka in the school play. Yes, give me my laurels, thank you. I also think that I don't like campus thrillers, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Any attempt at romanticizing school or academia, the way that ivy climbs over the brick wall, no. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. It just grates on me. It just reminds me of my school. That's really all I have to say about this one. I was about to say we're going to stop being negative, but we're heading into the did not finish section of the video. So just a little bit more negativity, a little bit more hateration, and then we'll move on. The one book that I did not finish that I had to put down was Lady Tremaine by Rachel Hochhauser. This one, I feel like Goodreads is on a psyop to like promote this book to me, because it's like books everybody's reading, hot new spring releases, and then it's like this book is at the top of every list. And I haven't seen it anywhere else except Goodreads, but I picked it up because it's essentially a retelling of Cinderella told from the perspective of the evil stepmother, which was so interesting to me because I feel like we don't talk about her a whole lot. There's so many, there's like heaps and heaps of Cinderella retellings, but not a lot focused, I feel like, on the stepsisters or the stepmother. And I was really interested in this. It's supposed to be like an exploration of motherhood and a mother's devotion to her daughters. I was just a little bit bored. I felt like nothing was really happening. And then I read some reviews that said even less happens in the second half, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna put this one down. I felt like there was like this really forced attempt at making the reader dislike the Cinderella character. Like, you have to trust that we will empathize enough with your main character, the stepmother, Lady Tremaine. Ever After with Drew Barrymore, the elite Cinderella retelling, the best. It still remains on top. And that's all I have to say on that. Thank you so much for watching this video. That was me rambling about all of the books that I've read this year so far. I will be back next month with an official monthly wrap-up. Bet on it. I will have probably as many books as I had in this video just in the next month. Like I said, negative splits. We're speeding up. May splits. Gonna go crazy. But for now, that is all I have for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye!